Yes, outside it may be raining, but here in the museum we're on the history trail. So will you welcome, please, our guide and interpreter, the sensational Mr. John Shuttleworth.
Talkin Saxon, Talkin Saxon, Talkin Saxon.
What an introduction. Yes, I'm John Shuttleworth, and welcome to the best show you've ever seen about the Anglo-Saxons, the history, the mystery, and all the bits in between. So, stay with us, will you, for Talkin Saxon. Now then, who were they, these Saxons? Well, we know they took over after the Romans, and were still in power when the Normans arrived in 1066. We know they came across the sea to England from Germany and Scandinavia. But what did they look like when they got here? Let's find out as we welcome onto the show a special guest, a super specimen, a real 100% genuine Saxon enthusiast, Mr. Neil Scarlett. Wow, look at that. What did I tell you? Genuine Saxon. The spear, the shield, the beard. Very impressive. But in real life you make reproduction furniture, don't you?
That's correct, John, I do.
Yeah. These Saxons weren't scrapping all the time, were they? All that fighting and fisticuffs.
No. I mean, Saxons were warriors, that's true. I mean, that's why they came across in the first place, to protect the people who were living here when the Romans started to leave. But you're better off thinking of the Saxons more as warrior farmers.
Oh, I see. So they fought only when they had to?
They actually preferred living peacefully, just farming and trading.
All right. Well, Mr. Warrior, you're welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of the show, and make sure we get the history right.
I will.
Ooh. But for now, let's have a look at some of the peaceful things they did, these Anglo-Saxons. Surely not.
John, this is a reconstruction of what a Saxon workshop might have looked like. Wooden doors, thatched roof, and walls made of mud, straw and horsehair. They called it wattle and daub. Let me show you what else is here. Lots of the things Anglo-Saxons used every day were made of bone or deer antler. Everybody carried a small knife like this, a sort of penknife. This comb is made from pieces of animal bone, riveted together and decorated with a pattern. Sometimes when archaeologists dig up combs like this, they find dead nits from Saxon hair still stuck between the teeth. So there you are, John. Some evidence here that the Saxons were very skilled at making things.
And surely we'll be back later with some more things to show on Talkin Saxon. A bit slow, that lad on the saw, isn't he? But I wouldn't mind a pair of those antlers in our hall. Make a very nice feature as you're coming through the front door. And talking of front doors, what sort of houses did these Saxons live in? Dark and drafty, cool or cosy? 1 story, 2 story? Well, out there on location with the whole story is Talkin Saxon's roving reporter, Mark Mywords. Mark.
Thanks, John. Now, I'm here in West Stow, Anglo-Saxon village in Suffolk, where they're constructing wooden houses like the ones the Saxons would have made over 1,500 years ago. And with me is the man in charge, Alan Baxter. Alan, why build houses here?
Because this really was a place where the Anglo-Saxons once lived. We know this because the whole place was excavated. Now, the wood that was used here once, most of that's rotted away, but we did find pits and post holes, and they gave us important clues telling us how these buildings may once have looked.
Let's find out how the buildings are constructed. What are you doing?
I'm making a triangular-shaped plank, and when I've finished working it, I should be able to put it up on the end of the building now.
So how do we know that they used wood instead of bricks, for instance?
When we excavated the site 25 years ago, we found the remains of burnt planks that the Saxons had left in the earth.
Now, I've looked around and noticed there are many different types of buildings. What is this?
Well, the archaeologists found that in some of the houses, they seem to have loads of, for example, looms in there, which makes us think that some of the houses were used for working in, for example, weaving in, and yet others were different, others just for living in. And they were all grouped around a central hall, which may have been for meetings or feasts.
So, John, it seems there are different buildings for different activities. They're all grouped around a hall, a place for feasts and fun.
Feasts and fun, facts and figures. It's good, is this? Mark my words, they'll be back later. Are you feeling peckish? I hope you are. Because I'm Talkin Saxon, live in the gallery in his cookery corner, baking, simmering and frying. Well, it is a bit hot under these lights. No, seriously. To tell us all about Anglo-Saxon food and how to cook a Saxon dish, will you give a very hearty welcome to celebrity chef, Mr. Roland Butter. Hello, Roland.
John.
Welcome to Talkin Saxon.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to give a draft?
Let me tell you what I've got here. This is a chicken stew, a very typical Anglo-Saxon dish. Earlier on, I put some water in this pan. I added some chicken pieces and some leeks.
What's these funny things? Yeah.
And that's pot barley.
Is it?
Pot barley, very common in Saxon times.
Looks like maggots.
It does a bit. Anyway, I'm letting this simmer for a little.
That's nice. What's that?
That's my washing up bowl.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh. Still very nice, though.
While this is simmering, let me tell you about some of the other things that Saxons used to eat.
Please do.
First of all, bread. One of the most important ingredients in any Saxon meal. Have a look at that.
Bit hard, though, isn't it?
It is. That's because most people couldn't afford yeast to make the bread rise.
See.
But most bread, or all bread, of course, is made with flour, and flour was made in those times with a quern. And this is a quern. It's 2 pieces of stone, and you put your grains of rye, wheat, or whatever in the middle there, and you turn it round. I've got a handy antler to show you how to do it. And the flour comes out round the sides.
It's much simpler to go to the supermarket for a bag of flour, wouldn't it?
If you were a farmer, and most people were, then meat, you would have had meat, although you probably wouldn't have eaten it every day. Here I've got some chicken, some pig, some ox, some sheep or lamb. If you lived by the sea or near a river, you would have had plenty of fish. Sprats, mackerel, oysters, mussels, that sort of thing.
I see. Well, we could have had fish and chips instead of maggots.
You couldn't have had the chips because, of course, the potato didn't arrive in this country for 500–600 years after Saxon times.
Whoa, imagine that. A world without chips.
But you could have had lots of fresh vegetables, particularly in the summertime. Or in the wintertime, you would have had dried beans or dried peas. Now, a little bit of salt I'm going to put in here. Very important part of Saxon cooking, both as a flavouring and a preservative.
I see.
And the dish is ready for tasting. There you are, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm starving. That's quite nice. Not as nice as my wife's shepherd's pie, though.
Have a drink to go with it.
I'd love to, but I've got to move on. Celebrity chef, Roland Butter. A bit bloated. And now it's time for a little information interlude. The first Shuttleworth Saxon Sum-Up.
Many Anglo-Saxons believed that when they died they went on to a new life and that they could take things into the new life. So people were buried with their belongings. A chieftain with his weapons, including a shield with a raised boss finger guard in the centre. Precious glass drinking cups with the body of someone wealthy. Unlike Christians, Anglo-Saxons worshipped different gods whose names we still use for days of the week. But gradually, over many years, Saxons converted to Christianity and gave up their burial traditions.
Right, and there'll be another Shuttleworth Saxon Sum-Up later in the show. But now, it's back to Mark Mywords, out there at West Stow Anglo-Saxon village with some animals.
John, we know the Anglo-Saxons were good farmers, and here at West Stow, they think they've managed to work out which animals the Anglo-Saxons would have farmed. So let's get stuck in the mud and find out. Lance Webb, you're education officer here. Chickens, pigs, where do we start?
The Anglo-Saxons here at West Stow had sheep and horses and cattle and definitely pigs. Pigs at West Stow are stocky and hairy because their life would have been in the woodlands around the village.
Well, we would they have been used for?
Well, mainly as a source of meat, but also the Anglo-Saxons knew about resources, so they'd use the skin of the animal as leather.
And how do we know that the pigs here are the same ones that the Anglo-Saxons farmed?
Well, that's a good question. When the site was excavated, thousands and thousands of bones were found here, and those bones can help us understand what the animals were and what size they were as well.
Thanks, Lance. Back to you, John, in Ipswich.
Nice one, Mark. Let my fingers doing that. Now then, it's better than blockbusters, funnier than the Pink Panther, bigger than Blue Peter. It's special, it's smashing, it's Saxon, it's Fiddle the Riddle. Please welcome a big hand for our wags in the bags. Come on this way. That's it. Right, now we're ready to play Fiddle the Riddle. Each wag in the bag is going to speak a different language. Only one of them is speaking real Anglo-Saxon, the language the Saxons would have used 1,500 years ago. All you've got to do is guess who it is, A, B or C. Guest A, would you fiddle the riddle, please?
Hilfe, mein Bein ist vielleicht gebrochen und Lunki ist mein Hund.
Guest B, would you fiddle the riddle, please?
Drake shall flower frode fratwum ulang. Cunning shall halla bergers delen.
Lovely. And finally, guest C, would you fiddle the riddle, please?
Atraco e tumulo, antiqua, preti, exaltans, rexe catedra, coronus des beget.
Thank you very much. Well, who was speaking the real Anglo-Saxon? Was it A? Was it B? Or was it C? Will the real Anglo-Saxon speaker now reveal themselves? Oh, what was it? Ha! It's B. Right, well, who might you be, B?
My name's Tom Plunkett, and I was speaking true Anglo-Saxon.
Well, lovely to meet you, Tom. I want to know the identity of the other two, don't you? Who are you, eh?
My name's Florence Seeley and I was speaking German.
Were you? What about C? Let's see.
I'm Neil Scarlett, and I was speaking Latin.
Ah, hey, he looks familiar. Hey, Tom, it's very good, that Anglo-Saxon. Can you teach me a bit of that?
Oh, yes, indeed. It's not very difficult to learn. Have a go.
Well, I'd love to, but first we've got to take a break. So don't go away, because in part 2, there'll be more from Mark Mywords, Shirley Knott, Saxon Superbrain, and with any luck, I'll be talking Saxon. See you soon.
Talkin Saxon. Talkin Saxon. Talkin Saxon.
Looking for DIY materials? They're all on offer this week in Woden & Thor's Bargain Barter. Massive discounts on all your building requirements. Just look at these barter prices. 50% off frame posts, 40% off floor planks, and you can get 10 bundles of thatch in exchange for just 2 sheepskins. There's much, much more to swap for what you've got this week in Woden & Thor's 7-day Bargain Barter.
Woden & Thor, building a better future. Remember the time. Imagine the pleasure. Yearn for the taste. Saxon's mead. Born from natural spring water. Brewed with fermented honey. Touched by a twist of fresh herbs. Come home to the true taste of Saxon's mead. Unwin and Indigo, family blacksmiths who make it all. Spears, swords, large or small, even repairs. Unwin and Indigo. Contact You and I Blacksmiths for a quote on all your metalwork. Because you know we can make it. You and I, the family blacksmiths.
Saxon. Talkin Saxon. What are we talking Saxon.
Welcome back to part 2. Now then, during the break, Saxon expert Tom Plunkett has been teaching me to speak a Saxon riddle, which we're going to say together. Any advice before we start, Tom?
Well, you give a bit of a growl, and then if you cough or spit in the middle, it doesn't really matter, because people will think that's part of the language.
Oh, I see. But so that people watching can understand what we're saying, Can we have subtitles, please? Thank you very much. Very kind of you. Oh, off you go, Tom.
Whilum ik gereudum rinkas ladiga, ulonka to wina.
Wheelum radum.
No. Whilum radum.
That's what I said. Wheelum radum. Shall Stevene, Minre, Verstolen, Redden.
Very good. Friga hwatic hata.
And Tom, what's the answer to the riddle?
Well, the answer is a horn.
Oh. Thank you, Saxon expert at the top. Thank you.
Talkin Saxon. Talkin Saxon.
In a few moments' time, I'll be taking part in Saxon Superbrain. And to ask me the questions will be question lady Janet Gershlick. Gershlick. Is that a Saxon name?
No, but that is a very good Saxon spit.
Thank you, Janet. Welcome to the show. Will you please tell us the sort of questions you'll be asking on Saxon Superbrain?
Well, all the questions will be about things you've seen and heard so far on the programme. Some will be straight questions, and some will be questions with pictures.
Oh, good. I like pictures. But you won't make them too hard, will you? Because I don't want to appear foolish.
No.
Right, anyway, you go off and smarten yourself up and get ready for Saxon Superbrain. Janet Gershlick, everybody. Now it's time to meet our reporter again, Shirley Knott. No, it is. That's her name, Shirley Knott. What have you got for us this time, Shirl?
Well, John, one thing we do know about the Saxons is that they were very skilled cloth makers. And with me is Saxon expert Dominic Powsland.
Me, Shirley. Yes, you're right. The Saxons were internationally known for the quality of cloth they produced. They kept a lot of sheep and goats, which would produce wool, which they dyed with natural dyes. And from that, they made clothes much like the ones I'm wearing. A thick woolen cloak over the top, held together here with a brooch, this long blue tunic, and then it was edged with tablet weaving. Fine weaving producing nice decoration around the edge of the clothing. Now, they produced more cloth than they actually needed to use themselves, so they could trade it.
So how do you make this cloth, Dominic?
It's made on a loom, just like this one you're standing next to.
Does it work?
It does indeed, and I'll get Tom to give me a hand to show you how it works.
Come out of your way.
How are we doing, Tom?
Very well.
Right, Shirley, this looks like an incredibly complicated gadget, but it's actually quite simple. You have a set of strings running down from the top to the bottom. They're called the warp, and they're weighted by heavy clay weights at the bottom. What we have to do is weave this thread in between, and we use this thing, the heddle, to actually separate those strings. So what I'm going to do is take this skein of wool and thread it in between here, and Tom's going to do the same thing from the other end, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle and swap over. There we go. Now, of course, doing this with two people, we can work twice as fast as one person, and the Anglo-Saxons would have been a great deal faster than we are. Then we push the thread up to the top, making sure it's nice and tight. That. And then to separate the strings again, we lift this up and we move this basket thread. And then we do the whole lot again.
So, there you are, John. Saxon weaving.
Hey, it's good, is that? Could you have a word, Shirley, and see if you can weave me a polar neck, a new lycra top or something? Smash it. Right, on with the show. Now it's time for another Shuttleworth Saxon Sum-Up.
Some Anglo-Saxons were highly skilled jewellers. Brooches like these were used to fasten cloaks and clothing. But they also worked with gold, silver and precious stones. This one has red garnet stones set into it, with a piece of patterned gold foil underneath the central stone to reflect the light and make it shine more brightly. Some necklaces had beads made from coloured glass, amber and rock crystal. The Saxons may have used precious beads as currency to buy other things. But of course most of these things would have belonged to people of great wealth or importance in the Saxon community.
About that then, Saxon jewellery. It's time for our final visit to Mark Mywords at West Stow, Anglo-Saxon village. And it's a scorcher, because Mark has been finding out how the Saxons worked with that essential force, fire. Tell us about it, Mark.
John, we've got gas and electricity for heating, lighting and cooking whenever we want. But the Saxon community had to work hard just to keep themselves warm and well fed. Fire was essential. I'm joined again by Alan Baxter, who's going to show me how the Saxons would have got their fires going and kept them going.
Well, I'd love to be able to show you how they did that, but it's easier said than done. What I'm trying to do is to use this steel based on one that archaeologists have found at Anglo-Saxon sites, and this piece of flint and a little piece of tinder here. I'm trying to strike a spark. The idea is that the spark falls on the tinder and then we can light a fire, but I'm not having much success. And one of the things that we've learned at West Stow is that the Anglo-Saxons were masters of a lot of skills, and it takes us quite a while to get as good as they were at doing things.
What would these fires be used for?
Well, we think the fires are used for heating and lighting, cooking. Even the smoke is useful because the smoke rises up into the roof here, but the Anglo-Saxons could have hung fish and meat up there and preserved it through the winter time.
I understand you once tried living in one of these houses.
Yes, that's right. A group of us wanted to try and find out what it may have been like here in Saxon times, so we dressed in Anglo-Saxon replica costume, we lived and slept in the houses, and generally got some idea of what it may have been like here in Anglo-Saxon times.
If fire burns everything away, how do you know that this fire is like an Anglo-Saxon fire?
Well, of course, we don't know for sure that it was exactly like that, but fires at West Stow have not all been destructive. Two of the Anglo-Saxon houses were burned down in their own time, perhaps by an accident, and that preserved the timbers of those buildings as charcoal, whereas the rest of it just rotted away. And that told us how long and how wide the planks were. It also told us that they used ash and hazel as part of the roof, and that they had a kind of thatch there as well. So it gave us some useful information altogether.
Well, thanks, Alan. That's all we've got time for here at West Stow. From me, Mark Mywords, back to you, John, in Ipswich.
Thank you, Mark. Brilliant. Welcome back to the Saxon Gallery for the final part of the show. Yes, it's time for Saxon Superbrain.
Your name?
John Shuttleworth.
Your occupation?
Versatile singer-songwriter. Though I used to work as a security guard for a sweet factory in the Rotherham area. Sorry, go on.
Your chosen subject?
The Anglo-Saxons.
For every correct answer, you get 2 points. For every wrong answer, you lose a point. 20 points and you win the title of Saxon Superbrain. John Shuttleworth, with your chosen subject of Anglo-Saxons, your time starts now. To which empire did Britain belong before 410 AD?
The Roman Empire.
Yes. From which material is this decorative comb made?
Deer's antler.
Yes. On this Saxon shield, what's the raised middle part called?
Shield boss.
Yes. How do we know what animals the Anglo-Saxons villagers kept?
From the bones?
Yes. What did they use to light fires?
Flint.
Yes. What animals besides cows, sheep and hens did the Anglo-Saxons keep?
Pigs.
Yes. In this picture of Anglo-Saxon gold jewellery, what are the red precious stones called?
Garnets.
Yes. What covered the roofs of the buildings at West Stow?
Thatch.
Yes. As well as being warriors or craftsmen, many Anglo-Saxons made their living how?
Farming.
Yes. Did the Anglo-Saxons first arrive in the east or the west of Britain?
The north.
No, I'm sorry, the east. What did the Anglo-Saxons use brooches like this for?
To fasten the clothing.
Yes. Where do we find fine glass drinking vessels?
In a cocktail cabinet?
No, in Saxon burials. We've run out of time, and John Shuttleworth, in that round of Saxon Superbrain, you've scored just 18 points, and you've just missed that title. So I'm afraid I can only call you Saxon Half-Brain.
Charming. Anyway, I wanted to choose DIY from 1967 to the present day. Now, I've had a smashing time, but we've come to the end of Talkin Saxon. So it's goodbye from reporters Mark Mywords and Shirley Hunt, Weaver Dominic Powsland, Riddler Tom Plunkett, Question Lady Janet Gershlick, Chef Roland Butter, I can't be his real name, can I? Maybe it is. And our smashing studio audience. Oh, and of course me, Saxon Half-Brain, John Shuttleworth. See you soon. Bye. Or as the Saxons might have said, farewell, yeah.
Saxon, talking Saxon, talking Saxon. Talkin Saxon.